Hi friends, I'm Angie Woodworth. I'm one of the pastors at Neighborhood Church, and this is our weekly reflection spiritual practice time. I had some ideas about what we might talk about this week, and then I don't know about you, but this week has felt yet more overwhelming or continued to feel overwhelming. There have been moments of joy and beauty for sure, but there's a lot in our world that is not right, and sometimes that can feel heavy. So as we prepare to talk a little bit today and reflect a little bit, I invite you to just breathe with me, to just center yourself in this moment, put down whatever else you are doing, and take a moment. And if now's not a time you can do that, this video will be here and you can come back and center with us and pray with us when you have a few moments. So I invite you to just settle, find your footing on the ground, be present in this moment, and to breathe with me. As we breathe in the love and grace and compassion of God. And as we breathe out the heaviness and anxiety and stress and worry. Let's take one more breath together. This kind of centering prayer, centering practice that brings us into the presence of God is core of our life with God. Prayer practice just means centering ourselves in the presence of God. That's it. It doesn't mean having the right words. It doesn't mean doing a right practice or doing something with a certain standard of excellence. It just means bringing ourselves into the presence of God, seeking to align ourselves with the love of God. And that's not the entirety of Christian practice, right? It is the thing, prayer is the thing that centers us in God's love, that equips us, that empowers us, that helps us discern what we then live out, right? It's why we say things like prayers and good thoughts aren't enough, right? In times of injustice. Because the prayer is for us and to center ourselves and our intentions and our desires for other people, our hopes for other people, our love and compassion for other people, our cries for justice and mercy in our relationship with God, right? To center ourselves and all of the stuff that swirls around us in the presence of God. And then the guidance, the strength, the clarity, the presence of mind that we gain from that time with God helps us discern or determine our actions in life with God, right? And prayer is an active thing, right, that makes a difference. And how we live out our intentions from that prayer are the next part of Christian life. And so today I want us to think about a practice a lot of us have come to call the next right thing, right? It's a book by Emily P. Freeman and a podcast as well. It's also a song in Frozen 2, which some of us had done a study and practice on the spiritual practice of the next right thing in the fall, and then Frozen 2 came out, and here was this song that put words to this practice we had taken on. Lovett Weems' Long called it the next faithful step, and so, or the next faithful thing, right? And so it's this idea that in our listening and in our presence with God, our work is to determine the next right or the next faithful step. We don't have to know the long range plans. And at this moment in our lives and this phase of the unknown, we can't know the long range plan. There's just too much. And that's hard for a lot of us, right? Like some of us really like to have a plan and a strategy and implement it in multi-phase steps and have a rollout plan, right? We love that. We love to just be able to put things on our calendar with certainty. And that's hard, and we are grieving the lack of ability to do that, many of us. But it's helpful, I think, to remember that all we can do is claim the next right step. Sometimes the next right step is get up, drink some water, take a shower, or go for a walk, feed yourself food that will nourish your body, right? Or sometimes the next right step is to step away and take a nap and be able to focus. Sometimes the next right step is to breathe, like we just did a moment ago, and center yourself with God, right? Sometimes the next right step leads us to more action. And I think the more we can center ourselves and care for ourselves in the most basic ways, the more we can find those next right steps to action when it's needed. Which leads me to where I'm feeling called this week. We are yet again facing the murder of a person with black skin at the hands of white people who believed they were entitled to take another human's life in their own hands. Now, Ahmaud Arbery was murdered a couple of months ago, and some of us have been aware of this murder, a lynching, a modern day lynching, and sort of following the lack of movement in this case. And then this week, another viral video came to light, or went viral, and that prompted action and outrage. And I believe that with everything else going on in the world, lots of people didn't know. But if you didn't know, I encourage you to follow more news sources that would help you know about things, right? If you are not following powerful Black prophetic voices, following news sources led by folks with black and brown skin, and listening to the news that white supremacy does not broadcast, then you're missing out, right? You're missing out on a whole part of the world. And that's important. But today, lots of people are going to be out running and walking with Maud, right? With Ahmaud Arbery, and in his memory, today would have been his 26th birthday that he won't get to celebrate because of two men in Brunswick, Georgia, here in our own state, who decided they were entitled to kill him for running in their neighborhood. And friends, I am so outraged that I don't really even have words, as I know many of you are, and our black and brown friends are exhausted by a world where this is true and no one seems to care, right? Our outrage only came this week when a video surfaced that proved to us what people had already said, what people with black and brown skin had already said to be true. But many of us didn't even know about it until this week. And all of that is symptomatic of the white supremacy that we swim in our daily lives, right? I'm not trying to rant. I'm not trying to go off on a tangent that brings more stress to our lives. I just think it's important for us to realize that no matter what's going on in our personal lives, the world of injustice around us continues to exist. Violence and oppression are still perpetrated on people every day. And those of us who can be safe and removed from it have, I think, a Christian responsibility to find at least the next right step we can take. It is hard work to dismantle white supremacy. It is hard work to deconstruct it in our own lives and pull ourselves out of all of the web that we have been formed in, really, surrounded by white supremacist culture. And a Christian church that has been too often complicit in that white supremacy, right? Helped perpetuate it in too many ways. So today, what I ask you to do is to take a moment to think about, to center yourself, to breathe, to be present with God, and to consider one way that you might work to dismantle white supremacy in your own life, that we might continue to be active in the lives of other people who can't make change in the world without us, right? If we all remain complicit as white folks, then there's no hope for change, right? We are the perpetrators of this violence if we don't actively resist it. So, as a congregation that seeks to be anti-racist, today I invite you to find one way. Now, maybe that's following a news source that helps you hear the voices of Black and brown people that might not make the mainstream news. Maybe it's following an artist and prophet like Anjie who, with his hope and hard pills, and with his music and with his words, will lead you to new knowing, right? Maybe it's committing to pick up a book and even just reading a few pages a day about white supremacy and racism and anti-racist. How to be anti-racist is a great start. And if you want resources, if you need to know where to start, reach out. Please message me, comment here. We will put up resources that help you if you don't know where to start yet. If you're not following Surge, showing up for racial justice in Atlanta, their chapter is really good. If you haven't followed Georgia Alliance for Social Justice, that's a great social media follow that will help you find resources and stay connected. Danielle Slaughter, who leads Mama Demics, has a fantastic curriculum you can buy and download and teach your children about Black history and anti-racism. It's a beautiful, powerful resource you could use in this time. Adults would benefit from it, but your children will benefit from it as well. And as the school curriculum's ending, if you want to pick up something and continue to do a little learning in bits across the summer, her Black history resources are fantastic from Mama Demics. As we move into this time, I want to invite you to consider some reflection in this song from Common Hymnal. It's called Rose Petals, and it invites us to consider the lives that have been lost, the Black and brown bodies that have been lost to violence of white supremacy, too many of whom we don't even know their names. But it invites us to consider them as roses and rose petals on the ground. And today we are mourning the loss of a life here in Georgia, rose petals on our own soil. So friends, I invite you to hear this song, to sit in the presence of God as you hear its words and let it reach your heart, and then take a moment. If you're running with Maud today, please take as much time to work on how you will dismantle white supremacy in your own life, what it looks like to disconnect from systems that perpetrate that kind of power and authority and that value white comfort and profit over brown and Black bodies and lives. Friends, this is important in our next right steps with God. There may be many other things we need to tend to, but being present with God to resist racism is part of bringing about the kingdom of God. I invite you to join me as we listen and reflect. This one is called Ahmaud Arbery.